I'm very much hoping that you can't tell in this video that my hair is actually like pretty wet. And I'm going to draw attention to it right now, so if it is wet I don't get comments being like, why is your hair greasy, which I've got before. It's wet, I just washed it, it's very clean. And I was going to blow dry it, I swear, but both the cats are currently asleep on my bed. And I just couldn't bring myself to turn on the hairdryer because I cannot wake the cats up because they are so cute right now. And I figured, you know, my book channel doesn't care, you guys don't care. I'm having a whole like filming afternoon, hence why I washed my hair, but I figured I'd do my book video first just because, you know, we're chill here, we're chill on this channel. As I'm filming this, it is the 29th of June. We are officially halfway through 2023, which is crazy in itself. But it also means I'm halfway through my reading challenge of 60 books this year because I have read exactly 30 books. Like, I am like bang on target. I'm really pleased with myself. And you know what? I wanted to push myself with 60 books this year. I just wanted to like consume as much as I possibly could. And I'm not even finding it difficult. Like, I've quite easily hit 30 books. I was 5 books ahead of schedule, and then I went on holiday for a week, then I came back and I was jet lagged for a week, so I just haven't really read much this month at all. I've actually only finished 1 book this month, which, you know, not great, but, you know, I'm still on target. I'm very pleased with myself. So I figured to celebrate this, I would do a book tag. Yes, an old school style book tag video. I used to do tag videos all the time on my channel when it was just like me and like 10 people, and it was just fun, like just answering questions. And I didn't realise they were still a thing, but apparently they are. Like, all of BookTube is currently doing the mid-year book tag. So I'm going to do it too. Basically, I just wanted to do like a mid-year book reading roundup, and then I saw people doing this, and it sort of gives it a bit of direction, you know, so that works out great. We have 13 questions I'm going to answer for you, and we're going to take a look at all of the books I've already read this year, what I loved, what I hated, what I've got coming for the next half of the year. It's all very exciting. So we're going to jump straight into it with the most important thing, the best book that I've read so far in 2023. I actually, like the huge organisational nerd that I am, in my notes app, I keep a list of my book rankings for each year. So as soon as I finish a new book, I like just put it in the ranking, like where it deserves to be. So I can tell you, like, without a doubt, my favourite book so far of 2023 was actually the first book that I read this year, and that is I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. The hype around this memoir is so deserved. This book, it kept me hooked beginning to end. I listened to it on Audible, which is a brand sponsor, I should say, but they're not sponsoring this video. Well, they haven't sponsored this channel, but they've sponsored my other channel and my Instagram, so I guess I need to talk about it here. The rules, honestly, the advertising rules, they're in place for good reason, but they're very confusing. I'm just going to disclose. I am sponsored by Audible. This isn't sponsored. I just listened to I'm Glad My Mum Died on Audible. I'm sure we all already know what I'm Glad My Mum Died is about, but just in case we don't, it is Jeanette McCurdy's memoir. She played Sam on iCarly on Nickelodeon for many years. That is probably like been her main role, and that is how everyone knows her. And it's basically the story of Jeanette's childhood growing up with her mum and with her family, and the really sort of intense mother-daughter relationship they had. And the sort of like narrative of the book, I suppose, follows Jeanette's mum's death. So her mum died after suffering with cancer for many, many years, and like her cancer sort of became one of her mum's main personality traits, what she'd used to manipulate people and sort of get what she wanted. And it's Jeanette's really complicated relationship with the fact that her mum died, and she feels relieved that her mum died, but also intense guilt for feeling this relief. Like, she has really complicated relationship with her mum, with her career. She never wanted to be an actress. Like, her mum was very much a stage mum, wanted her to be an actress. And it's just Jeanette grappling with all these different conflicting emotions. Like, most of the time, I'm not a memoir girly. Like, I won't go to pick up a memoir and generally enjoy it. Like, I've tried to read so many in the past, I just get bored halfway through. Jeanette is so compelling in the way she writes the story, or at least I should say in the way she tells this story on her audiobook. And your heart breaks for her. There's funny moments, there's absolutely devastating moments. It is just so gripping, and I highly recommend it to everyone. It feels weird to like give a memoir like a rating, because this is somebody's like true life story. It's somebody like opening their hearts and their past to the public, but this is 5 stars. Like, it's an incredible read. The next question is the best sequel I've read so far in 2023. Now, I generally don't read like series. or at least I haven't in quite a long time now. The only sequel I've read so far is Find Me by Andrea Asselman, which is the sequel to Call Me By Your Name. And so I suppose I have to say it is the best sequel that I have read so far in 2023. But I also must tell you that it is my least favourite book that I have read in 2023. Find Me by Andrea Asselman was the biggest disappointment. It's actually one of my least favourite books I've ever read. I could rant about this for hours on end. I actually do have a video planned where I'm just going to rant at the camera for about 30 minutes straight about all of my least favourite books. People seem to love it when I go off about these books I hate, so I'm just going to do a whole video where I just like tell you about the books that I hate. Find Me is so unnecessary. This book didn't need to be written. Call Me By Your Name is one of my favourite books of all time. I love that book so much. Why did Andrea Esmond have to go in and ruin everything? Like, Call Me By Your Name got quite a bit of heat because of the sort of age gap and the sort of power imbalance between Elio and Oliver. I completely understand that. I understand why there was that sort of like feedback. Andrea Esmond, instead of like doing a sequel to kind of like placate that, he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in and I'm going to write a sequel that makes everything so much worse. So you want to go in to Find Me By Your Name, like reading about Ellie and Oliver, like that's what you want. You want to read about these characters that you fell in love with in the first book. No, the first like half of the book is about Samuel, Elio's dad. Nobody cares about Samuel. Like, sure, he has like a cute moment in the movie, but nobody really wants to know about Samuel. Especially nobody wants to know about Samuel and his torrid love affair with a woman half his age that he meets on a train. I don't want to read about them having sex in graphic detail. I don't care about it. It is so weird. It was so strange. And then eventually, halfway through the book, Elio comes back into the picture. And guess what? He's in another relationship with another man who's like 30 years his senior. What? I don't know if Andrea Esmond was like trying to make it better that like Elio and Oliver had like a 7-year age gap. No, I don't think it was that. 6-year age gap. In the book, like Elio was 17, Oliver was like 23. I don't know if he was trying to make that age gap better by just putting bigger and more gross age gaps in the second book. Honestly, I don't know. I'm going to save the rest of that rant for that video that I just mentioned a second ago. So yes, Find Me By Your Name? What? Find Me is technically the best sequel that I've read this year. It is also the only sequel and the worst book I've read this year. Do not recommend. A new release that I haven't read yet, but I really want to. So for this, I think I need to get up my Goodreads. Or I can maybe get up the video. Actually, no, I don't need to get up my Goodreads because I know exactly what I'm going to talk about here. And actually, it's right on my desk, which makes it seem like this answer is pre-planned. I mean, it could have been, but like it's not because I just remembered this exists. This book is a new release that I am so excited to read. Andrew and Santi Were Here by Johnny Garzavia. This is a queer love story. Of course it is, because that is pretty much all I read. I am so excited to read this book. Look how beautiful this cover is. I actually bought this when I was in New York along with a whole load of other hardbacks that I just wasn't able to get hold of here in the UK. I actually feel like this book is getting released very soon here. Let me just give it a Google. This book is being released in like 3 weeks here in the UK in hardback. The paperback isn't coming out until next year. I hate hardback books, but I just couldn't resist this. Like, it is beautiful and I want to read this book so bad. Apparently I couldn't wait 3 weeks, so I picked this up. Do you guys know how expensive books are in America? Like, I have a whole new respect for American readers and like American booktubers and American booktalkers because Jesus Christ, your books are so expensive. I am so sorry. Like, I just didn't know how much more expensive books were. Like, here we go into Waterstones and like it's expensive if you pay like £12 for a book. Like £12 I think is like a bit, can I like justify spending £12 on a book? On Amazon, most books are around £8. In New York, in the bookstores I was going to, I don't know if maybe New York's inflated, I really don't know. This book cost me $19 plus tax on top of that. This book Girls and Their Horses, which I really wanted to read, and it's just not out here in the UK at all, cost me like, it doesn't even have a price on it. Oh, here we go. $27 US. Like, excuse me? So expensive. Like, even the paperbacks were like $15. It was insane, and that's before tax. So I picked up a few books I like really wanted to read that I like just couldn't get hold of here in the UK. At least aren't being released for a while. Like, this is $12.99. This is Fresh by Margot Woods. This is $12.99 plus tax on top of that, whereas here in the UK it's $9.99, and that would just be the flat price, $9.99 including tax. So expensive. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, I went on a tangent there. What were we talking about? What was the question? Oh, a new release I haven't read yet but want to. This is a brand new release. It's actually out in the UK, like I said, in about 3 weeks' time. The 17th of July, I think Amazon said. 17th of July, this is out in the UK. It's already out in America. I'm so excited to read this. I'm getting texts. So the next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year, which I suppose in the UK I could say that this is highly anticipated because it isn't out for another 3 weeks. But let's get up the video that I did towards the beginning of this year where I spoke about all the books I was most excited to read in 2023. Okay, I have an answer for you, but I'm actually very unclear as to whether it's being released this year or early next year, but I think it's this year. According to Amazon, this is being released on July 26th, 2023, but it's saying a library binding? I don't know what a library binding is. Is that just a hardcover? I don't know. But that is What Happened to Ruthie Ramirez by Claire Jimenez. And it says here, it's a powerful debut novel that is hilarious, heartbreaking and ass-kicking of a Puerto Rican family in Staten Island who discover their long-missing sister is potentially alive and cast on a reality TV show, and they set out to bring her home. The whole premise of this sounds so interesting to me, and it's one that keeps popping into my head constantly, and I keep going to check when it's being released, and now finally it actually has a date. The paperback, it says, isn't being released until February 20th, 2024. We'll see if I can wait that long. I don't know if I can, but the library binding, whatever that means, is coming out on July 26th. So I suppose that is a read that I am very, very much anticipating, I suppose, to bring it back to the original question. It seems to have mixed reviews. Some people, it's either getting, in the reviews here, 1 star or 5 stars. So I'm very intrigued. I'm not actually going to read any of the reviews because I don't want anything to put me off. But I'm very excited. My biggest disappointment of 2023 so far has to be one of these books. I couldn't choose between them, so I'm going to talk about them both. So this is The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett, and this is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I'll start with I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I had really high hopes for this, of sort of I had this idea of what this book was going to be about, and then it just wasn't anything like the blurbs kind of sell it to you, basically. So the way this book is kind of described online is as being a very fresh, millennial, witty take on influencer culture and the very dangerous parasocial relationships that come alongside that. Obviously, being a content creator myself, that sounds absolutely fascinating. But that's not what this book is about. So this is basically the thoughts and feelings of an unnamed narrator. And this unnamed narrator is just a bit deranged. She's clearly quite mentally ill. And she's obsessed with 2 different people. So she is obsessed with the man she wants to be with. Again, never find out his name. And the woman she's obsessed with. Again, don't find out her name. The woman she's obsessed with is an influencer. And it never really entirely explains why she's so obsessed with these 2 people in particular. This could have been a really sort of exploratory look at sort of race and power and classism, especially this is set in the UK. Classism is a real problem here, and it very much it tries to talk about those topics, I feel, but it doesn't quite go all the way. And I just feel if you're going to try and sort of touch those things in a book, it needs to be thicker than this. But don't get me wrong, I was very pleased the book was only this big, because actually it was a really difficult read. I had to force myself through to the end of this. The narrator in this book is Asian, if I remember correctly. I'm really sorry, I've kind of just blocked this book out of my memory because I hated it so much. But I'm pretty sure she was Asian, and it very much touches on her relationship with her race and how her race leads her to be perceived by the people. and it just like touches the surface, but it never quite goes all the way. And like, I could have dealt with it not being what I thought it was going to be going in if I actually enjoyed what it was. And I just didn't. It was just basically deranged rambling. And it doesn't make sense at any point. And then we have The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett. Now, I read The Appeal by Janice Hallett towards the beginning of this year. I loved that book so much. It's literally second on my book ranking currently. I just thought it was so interesting, so clever, the way that all the stories sort of like weave together. It's a very modern take on the epistolary novel, so it's basically told through like emails and reports and things like that, text messages, phone calls. And it's basically, The Appeal is a story of a murder has taken place within an amateur theatre group, and it's these two young lawyers trying to figure out who was responsible for the murder and what's really going on. Anyway, I found that fascinating. I thought it was so interesting, the way like you were slowly like drip fed clues and evidence as the reader, and you actually had all of the evidence you needed to actually like figure it out yourself before it got to the end, which is so rare in a book. I thought it was so clever. Anyway, I thought The Twyford Code was going to be very similar. This book was awful. I did not like this at all. I was warned by people. People told me it wasn't as good as The Appeal. I didn't believe them. I read it anyway, and I fought my way through to the end, and I did not like it. So instead of being emails and texts, this is actually all told through audio files. So you have a main character called Steve. He is freshly out of jail, and he's basically become obsessed with something called the Twyford Code. When he was younger, he went on a school trip, and on the school trip, his teacher disappeared. And he comes to find out the disappearance may be linked to something called the Twyford Code, which is this code that this author left in all these children's books that this teacher was obsessed with. So Steve sets out on a mission to decode the Twyford Code and basically find out what's at the end of it. And it's all told through audio files, so it's very like unreliable. So the audio sort of like transcribe service basically picks up words wrong a lot of the time. So you're spending a lot of like brain power trying to like decode what specific words in this mean. So when he says must have, it transcribes as like mustard, cause as in like because, comes up as like cause as in like KOS. It takes a lot of like, you've got to use a lot of brain power to like figure this out, but I just didn't care. I just didn't care enough to try and figure out the mystery in this. I didn't care enough to like, I didn't like the character. I didn't like Steve as a character. He's very much like East End, like London criminal lad kind of vibes. It's just very confusing, and you're like jumping constantly between like Steve talking about his past as a kid and like how he ended up in prison in the first place, and then it sort of like jumps to Steve talking about the Twyford Code and what's going on right now, and it's just a bit too jumpy for me. You know when you're reading it, like there's a reason behind everything. Like Janice Hallett is incredibly clever in the way that she puts these books forward, like the way she writes them. So I knew there was like some sort of like something to decode in the way that the story was being told. I just found it too jumpy. I didn't really care for Steve. Didn't like it. Was very disappointed. The next question is favourite new author, and honestly, I've been looking at my list and the only author that I've read 2 books by this year is Janice Hallett. And you know, she's got only a 50% success rate so far, so I don't really know. Probably the book that I was most intrigued by, and I'd probably be intrigued to read more by this author, was Dean Atter, who wrote The Black Flamingo. I don't know if he's got any other books. I haven't looked into it at all. Should I give it a Google right now? We're here, let's do it, let's find out. Dean Atter. So he's actually a poet, not an author, and it looks like The Black Flamingo might be his only novel, which is in verse. What about this one, Only on the Weekends? Oh no, I think this is another book by him. Only on the Weekends, a romantic coming-of-age novel in verse. So, you know what, I'm going to say Dean Atter, because now I know he's got another book. I'm very intrigued to read that, so Dean Atter. It's just incredible the way that Dean Atter is able to create such a vivid, true world in your head, like such a true picture in your head as you listen to the audiobook. It's just magic. He uses so few words to get across what he's trying to say, and it's honestly, like, it is such a skill to be able to do that. The next one is newest fictional crush, and honestly, I don't think I have an answer for you here. I was just looking through like the list of all the books I've read, and I read obviously a lot of queer fiction, but a lot of it is like YA queer fiction, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't have crushes on any of the fictional teenagers in any of those books. Feels a bit weird. Not into that kind of thing. The only adult queer book that I've read, no, actually I've read a couple. I've read Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Weisner and Sorry Bro by Talene Boscuni. Neither of them, I didn't really like particularly crush on either of the characters in those books. They actually were all quite annoying. Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Weisner is about a sort of like a MILF relationship. I'm not into MILFs, not my kind of thing. So honestly, I can say I don't really have any crushes, I'm sorry to say, out of any book that I've read so far this year. I think I could probably say quite confidently that the only time I've ever really read a book and I've had like an actual like crush on a character is probably Delilah Green from Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I can't think of any other like book character that I'm like, yeah. Is that bad? Is that normal? I don't really know. Newest favourite character, again, I have to talk about The Black Flamingo by Dean Atter. Michael, the main character in that. He grows up from this like sort of timid toddler. You literally follow him from when he's a toddler, I think, or not much older than a toddler, all the way into being this like strong, powerful, confident young man just coming out of university. And I loved the character of Michael so much. I was so sad when the book finished because I was like, I just want to spend more time with this beautiful boy. You know, I don't often get like crushes on book characters, but I do very often finish a book and I'm like, I wish I could be friends with this character, and Michael was one of those. The next two questions are book that made you cry and book that made you happy, and again, I could quite confidently say The Black Flamingo for both of those categories. It made me cry, it made me so happy. It is just so wonderful. Honestly, if you read any book on this list, I highly recommend The Black Flamingo. Like, it's third in my book rankings for this year, but it covers every base. But just for the sake of not talking about the same book for 3 categories in a row, I'm going to say for a book that made me cry, Men Who Hate Women by Laura Bates. This is a look at incel culture and just generally men who hate women, as the title might suggest. How these sort of like really misogynistic communities online infiltrate down into everyday life and affect every single one of us. How you like see these really dark communities where these men like genuinely hate women, and you think that's so far removed. Like, I don't know anyone like that, but you do. Like, it seeps into mainstream culture, and this book terrified me. Like, it genuinely terrified me, and it made me cry at multiple points. I listened to the audiobook again. I would be sat in my car on my way to the stables in the morning just crying. I highly recommend everyone listens to it, but you just got to have a strong head on your shoulders. Like, if you ever doubt the need for feminism, if you've got a man or a woman in your life who argues against like why we need feminism, why we're still fighting for equality, they need to listen to this book. I don't know how you'd get them to listen to it or read it, whatever format you want to consume it in. But I would force this on everyone. I wish that everyone could listen to this. It will change your world. For a book that made me happy, is it really bad that I'm looking at this list and I'm like, I don't know if any of these made me like particularly happy? Maybe really controversially, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I just really love the like grumpy sunshine trope in The Love Hypothesis. That was, did I answer? Number 6 in this list is biggest surprise. Did I answer the biggest surprise? I have a feeling I didn't actually answer that question. So for the book that made me happy and my biggest surprise of the year, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I read The Love Hypothesis as part of my lesbian read straight romance video that I did a few months back, and honestly going into it I probably expected to hate this one the most. It's the one that I've seen like the most vitriol towards on the internet. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. Like, it didn't feel anti-feminist, as a lot of like straight romance books feel to me. Like, a lot of the time they feel like very anti-feminist. The Love Hypothesis, it felt like straight romance, but feminist. It was just, I loved the character. I can't remember for the life of me what the main character is. I don't have it on hand, I don't think, so I lent it to my sister. Did I? Yeah, I think I lent it to my sister, so I don't have it to show you. But I just loved the main character. She was just this like little ball of sunshine, and I'd read it with an actual smile on my face. And the professor guy that she like falls for, again, I can't remember his name, Adam, Was he called Adam, maybe? Like, he was so grumpy, but also, like, really sweet. And I just loved the way, like, they bounced off each other. I thought it was really cute. I liked that book. Shoot me. The most beautiful book I've bought so far this year. Boy, do I have some books to show you. I've bought so many beautiful books, like, literally in just, like, the last couple of months. Like, She Is a Haunting by Trang Tan Tran. Look at this cover. Look at it. I haven't read this yet. I haven't read any of these yet, but, like, just look at this cover. This is so beyond gorgeous. I'm going to focus. Oh, just look at it. That is amazing. So that book, obviously, Andrew and Santi were here. Obviously, just look at that. I just, like, touched the mic with that. It definitely made a bonk, didn't it? Look how beautiful that book is. And then I have Gay Bar by Jeremy Atherton Lynn. Like, very simple, but I just love that cover. I, like, don't know how best to show you like that. Look at that. Simple, effective. I love it. And then, oh my god, Diquette by Jenny Fran Davis. Oh my god, sorry, I keep touching the microphone. I apologise to my headphone listeners. Look at that. And it's signed. I bought this at the Strand. Look, it's signed. That's exciting, isn't it? Yeah, beautiful, gorgeous, so beautiful. And then the final question is, what books do I need to read by the end of the year? Those 4 that I just showed you. I also want to read this one, Fresh by Margot Wood. I'd never heard of this before, but just I saw it in Barnes & Noble and thought it looked really fun. God, it's got a long blurb. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. If you're intrigued, you can go and look it up online. I don't even really know what it's about myself. I just was kind of drawn in by this fun cover. Girls and Their Horses by Eliza Jane Brazier. I really want to read this one. I actually might make this one my next read. And you know what? I better bloody enjoy it because I spent about $30 on it. Still salty about that. And what other books do I have down there that I want to read? The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes. I can't see her name. I'm sure the surname's Reyes. Never Ever Getting Back Together by Sophie Gonzalez. I'm really hoping that that title is indeed a reference to Taylor Swift. I don't know. I hope it is. Tell me in the comments if it is. The rest on that list, I'd like to read The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. I'd really like to read by the end of the year. But those are probably the main ones I'm going to prioritise. And also I have like a million on my Kindle that I'm currently trying to get through. I just went a bit crazy before holiday and just like literally filled up my Kindle. Like, I can't fit any more books. My Kindle is full. So I've got about a million on there to read. But could I tell you a single title of any of them? No, I couldn't. I'm currently reading Bunny by Mona... What's it called? Bunny by Mona Awad? Weird. I don't know if I like it or not. I'm 25% in. Can't tell you my actual thoughts and feelings on it yet. Crazy. Anyway, that's it. That is my like mid-year reading catch-up. Have a chat with me in the comments, guys. Let me know what your favourite book of the year so far has been. Let me know if there's any books that you think I should add to my list that you think I'd enjoy. I get the best recommendations from you guys in the comments. Like, you recommend some incredible books, so keep them coming. And I guess I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.